Hello, welcome to Closing Chapters, Everyday Real Estate Tales. I'm your host, Brittany Fry. I'm a realtor, I'm a military wife, and I'm a mom. Join me and come transaction by transaction throughout my real estate career starting back in 2016 to hear about the highs, the lows, and the unexpected turns along the way through all of my customers. It's going to be a crazy ride, you guys. I am so excited to share the past, the current, and then what's coming in the future. Hang tight for the ride. Join me about being a realtor, a military spouse, and a mom. Can't wait to see you there. Hello. Welcome back, my friends. As promised, I am in yet a different location. We are now at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for the next 2 months. My husband is here to do a warrant officer advanced course, and we have the pleasure of joining him. We actually really like this area for getting outside and going hiking and seeing springs and just spending family time together. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. So far, it absolutely has not. We got here, it was icy, it's been cold and misty and so super foggy. So we haven't done much of anything yet this week. So hopefully by the weekend, fingers crossed, we have some good weather and we can get out and about a little bit. So this is one of the beauties about working in real estate. Once again, I have the flexibility to come and go with my family as need be when we deem necessary. So it's really a beautiful blessing. Now, the challenge is my husband, myself, our 2 children that are almost 4 and 16 months, and our dog are all inside of one very small hotel room with all of our stuff for 2 months, which means you have to have just about a little bit of everything because you don't know if the weather's going to change or what toys you might need or anything you need for kids. I mean, every time you just leave the house, it's like you're packing up the house, right? So anyhow, it's a little chaotic, but we are finally getting a little bit settled into a routine, and I am so excited to be back with you again. So today we are taking a blast back to October 30th, 2017. This is the family and house of what ifs. Now, when I say this, I'm sure we can all relate, especially as you get a little bit older in life and your dynamics start to change a little bit. The possibilities start to change in your household. So let me know if this sounds familiar. What if my adult daughter and my grandchild come to live with me? What if my mother comes to visit and can't go up and down the stairs? What if one of my daughters comes back from school? What if I need more than 2 bathrooms? What if there's not a full bathroom on the first floor? What if this family had a full military career? He was still active duty. He actually put on lieutenant colonel while he was in the Army at Shaw Air Force Base. He was with the 3rd Army headquarters there and had adult children. At the time when they bought, their youngest child was about 16. She just finished her EMT school, which is amazing. It's so cool to watch and follow throughout their lives. So, but the youngest was about 16, and then the oldest was an adult, had their own child, was living in Florida, not in the best situation, eventually did come stay with them. But at the time, it was just an option. It was, we need to have a space just in case. And his mother lived in Myrtle Beach, 2 hours away. So if she wanted to come visit, great. If her mom wanted to come visit, great. But they wanted a space predominantly downstairs so that they weren't having to manage going up and downstairs. Or, what if somebody needed to come stay with them because their health was failing, whatever the case may be. So at the time that they purchased, it was them and their 2 daughters, 2 of their 3 daughters, and their critters. And that's it. Easy peasy, right? But all of these scenarios of the what ifs, just in case, how do I plan for this? That's what created a lot of hardship in trying to find the perfect scenario for them. Additionally, like I said, he had already had a full military career. They had adult children, and he was still active duty. And this was the first house they were purchasing. And this is not uncommon. A lot of times in the military, especially if you are an officer and you are deemed to be moving every 2 or so years, they don't like to buy a house because they are worried about what to do next. Can they sell it and get out from underneath of it? Do they want the hassle of renting it? Right? To me, that's a great tactic for generational wealth. However, not everybody sees that, and sometimes it's just cumbersome and scary and not something that they're up for. So it is very common for someone to get through a whole entire military career, 20 plus years, and have never purchased a home, and then to get out and finally be ready to retire and just be getting ready to start purchasing. But like I said, this family was still active duty, and they were just at a place where they were finally ready to purchase a home. So they thought. This was a really big deal for them. It was a huge transaction. It felt huge at the time, right? It was 2017. Ultimately, the house that they purchased was $275,000. Now we would say, oh my gosh, you got a steal. When I tell you the details of this house, you're going to be like, really? Wow. So we were looking at several different properties. There was one in a particular neighborhood called Garden Gate that I really thought was the one. It had a beautiful big front covered porch, had a screen and patio on the back for like a little coffee nook. There was the primary bedroom and additional bedroom downstairs, the rest of the bedrooms upstairs. It really was laid out very well. And they really loved the home. It was not new and modern and fancy, but it was homey, if that makes sense. You just walked in and you just relaxed. It felt good. The downside was when you get different people in your ears and you don't know what to believe and understand that houses are houses and they're never going to be perfect, they started just finding anything and everything that could go wrong. The two big items was they put like a marble on a floor and it rolled. And they were like, oh my gosh, the house is so unlevel, da 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 da. Okay, no house is going to be perfectly level all the time. Now, is there a time where it's like a little too much? Yeah. In this instance, I'm pretty certain that the ceramic tile had been replaced in the kitchen and it was probably just not leveled very well beforehand, if that makes sense. And additionally, the kitchen went down to that little screen and patio, and I think that contributed to it as well. Anyhow, that made them a little bit nervous. And then the icing on the cake was it had a crawl space and all the ductwork was underneath the crawl space. And on the property disclosure, it showed that all the ductwork had been replaced. And for them, they're like, oh my gosh, it flooded. They had to get it replaced. I'm going to have this issue. We're going to have mold, da 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 da. And it just snowballed. Well, a few years prior to that, we had the 100-year flood. And that caused issues that were not normal in our area. So obviously, the seller did the right thing, replacing the ductwork, disclosing what he had done. And my buyers just were not prepared for the what if scenarios in that case. So, what they ultimately ended up purchasing was a new construction home. It was 3,800 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a flex room downstairs that could be used as an additional bedroom or an office. It had like glass French doors, a full bathroom downstairs, and then the rest of the bedrooms, all 4 bedrooms were upstairs. It was a absolutely beautiful layout, and they got a great deal. Let's go back to that price point. 3,800 square feet, $275,000. Less than $100 a square foot. Well under $100 a square foot on a brand new construction house. Are you kidding me? Right now, new construction goes for like 200 and above a square foot. They got a great deal. Now, ultimately, the two daughters that were living with them moved out. The adult daughter and the grandchild did move in, but they decided to sell the house on their own in 2021, and it wasn't on their own. It was with a little bit of assistance from yours truly. I have a really bad habit of helping a little bit more than I should, but that's okay. It's all in good faith, and I know that it all comes back to me. So I'm still very thankful that they reached out to me and trusted me enough to help with their questions. So when they sold it for $340,000. So they made over $65,000 on the property just from the sales price, right? They had some equity in it by then, between 2017 and 2021. It's really great. So, you want to talk about a scary investment. A scary investment put some change in their pocket. Now, when I say scary investment, when we got to closing day, they really, really had a hard time understanding the pricing of houses and that the pricing here was an absolutely good price. So, either way, if you have never spent $275,000 in your life in one foul swoop, that can be a little bit scary. And it was. Imagine being in your 40s, your late 40s, never buying anything more expensive than a car, and then all of a sudden you're going to spend almost $300,000. That could be a little bit stressful, right? And when I tell you these folks did everything right financially, they were perfectly fine, in good shape. These are my clients that always are a lot more particular, take their time, and have a little bit more woes and sorrows, honestly, about making these decisions. When it came to closing day, it took us several hours and having to take a break and come back to close on this property. We just had a really hard time with everybody getting on the same page, feeling comfortable and confident moving forward with a purchase of a home in general. I think, when you haven't purchased a home at all and all of a sudden you're doing something new, and when you're at closing, it's honestly a pretty fast paced process. When you are signing as a buyer and you have a mortgage, it's a pretty thick little packet. So the attorney's job is to kind of move things along and really get going through it. This is not the time to sit and read through all the documentation. Now, the side note to that is over 3/4 of the documentation in these packets you have already signed electronically with your lender along the way. It is all copies of the same exact stuff. A lot of times they want wet ink signatures on the same documents, and you're just reviewing everything that you have seen before. So when we get to the closing table and you start reading line by line every document, the attorney kind of goes, "Hold up. If you want to do that, that's fine, but you can sit here and do that, and we will schedule a different time for you to close and come back and do this, because you have like a 30 to 45-minute window with that attorney to get through." So anyhow, after kind of regrouping a couple of times and saying, "Hey, let's take a little break and come back to this," everybody got on the same page, and we all got assigned and got keys in their hand. Now, this house ended up serving them very well. They had plenty of space for their daughters. They had plenty of space for their daughter and grandchild to come eventually. And they were in a fantastic location right in the center of town. They could get to the base in like 10 minutes. They can get to downtown in 10 to 15 minutes, into town less than 10 minutes. They were just really in a great nook. The main road that they were off of, Loring Mill Road, has these beautiful wide sidewalks, very easy to go and walk or ride bike or whatever have you. So it was really all gravy at the end of the day. So I say all this to say, I understand that sometimes when you are making a big purchase, it can be very scary. Personally, for us, we've had a hard time with that. When we moved, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. When we moved from South Carolina, our first property we bought was $109,000. The next property we bought was $297,000. We almost tripled the amount we were spending, and that felt heavy. That was scary. It felt like we were making this huge jump. Can we handle this? Are we going to be okay? And of course we were, but it's a huge adjustment. So I understand that. And I want you to know that I've been through that, and that I will walk with you side by side with a caring heart and an understanding mind. With that said, I'm here to support you in your endeavors and whatever you want to accomplish. So if you tell me, "Brittany, I want to buy a house," then I'm going to say, "All right, when this gets tough, I'm going to remind you that you want to buy a house so that you have space for your daughter and your grandbaby and your mom to come visit with no questions or worries at all, where you can have your 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs, where you can have your chickens if you want, where you can have a cat and not have to worry about, any of the lease restrictions, right? I'll tell you, a lot of times rentals don't prefer to have cats because cats can do a lot of damage easily, especially with like carpet and that kind of stuff. So, not that dogs can't, but it's a whole lot easier to kennel a dog than it is a cat. So, anyhow, it gives you so much freedom and flexibility. And I want you to know that I'm never going to pressure you into anything, but I will absolutely support you and remind you of your goals when it gets stressful and when it gets a little bit tough. This deal was tough for me. It took us about 6 months to get them into a house. 6 months of actively looking, 6 months of dropping whatever I was doing on a dime. And it was a lesson to be learned. I need to stand a little bit firm and have a set schedule and only show during certain windows. And if I'm already out on the way to date night with my husband, I don't need to delay that or cancel that or string my husband along all the time. So a lot of lessons learned. However, I loved this family dearly. We had a great relationship and I really enjoyed spending time with them. And they also honestly invited us into their home very easily. And like I said, their youngest daughter was 16. She was a smart cookie and was finishing up high school over a year early, got into a dual enrollment program where she could go to the community college. So there were several mornings that if mom wasn't available for any reason, I went and picked up the daughter and took her to school. This was an amazing family. So sometimes that makes it really hard to set and hold boundaries. When you enjoy somebody and you appreciate them as a family, it doesn't mean that they're going to be fantastic clients. However, it makes you want to do the most for them because you really appreciate them and enjoy them and respect them. So, fair warning, if you get into real estate, you're gonna get in that situation where you just find somebody that you're like, my gosh, we have so much fun when we're showing houses, or we like cutting up, or we just get along so well, but they are just not the ideal client. They have a hard time committing, or it's a big transaction for them, whatever the case may be. There's all different scenarios. Maybe they're looking for something that they really just can't afford, but you're just like, oh, I want to help them so badly because I enjoy them. This has happened to me more than once, and I just had another transaction recently that was the same thing, but we'll talk about that in the future. Either way, word to the wise is follow your heart, follow your gut. Sometimes it's well worth it to make those changes, to just set your standards aside and say, hey, I love you guys. I'm going to do whatever I can to get you into a home. And if that means that I'm showing you properties outside of what I normally would show, meaning, I'm telling you I'm on the way to date night and I'm going to stop on the way, or I'm going to try to take off Saturday and I'm around and you call me, so I come and show you anyways. There's certain things that we don't change, like the safety of not showing in the dark or anything like that. That's never going to change because that is safety for me and you. So anyhow, I'm just saying it's okay to be lenient. Just don't let that become your new standard across the board because it will suck you down and like quicksand and it's hard to get back out. But either way, I am so blessed that I got to work with these clients, and I'm really happy that they purchased a home and got through this process because once you do it once, it's not so scary the next time. And that is a blessing all in itself, right? Just to get past a hurdle and realize we can accomplish something and we can grow from this is beautiful. And it served them well. And I'm so, so glad it did and very proud that it did because it was a perfect example of what home ownership can do for you, right? They were able to move on to a new chapter with a beautiful nest egg in their pocket, and that house served them very well. So, if you have what ifs, scenarios, different things you think may happen in the future, give me a call. Let's find the best combination of what you need all the way around and what that looks like for you, what the timing might look like for you, and see if I can be of help. Even if you just want to chat about it and say, hey, I really want to buy, but I keep thinking about what if this happens or what if that happens. Let's chat. Let's talk about it. Let's run some scenarios and just see what it looks like. I love this part of my job. So, I hope you guys have a fantastic evening. I cannot wait to come back to you on Saturday. I cannot believe we are almost wrapping up 2017. This year has flown by in business. So many more transactions, such a blessing, and I can't believe I'm getting the opportunity to share all of this with you. Thank you for being here. I'll talk to you soon.